but Congress never passed a real worker visa program. So what happened in the 1990s, our economy boomed. We had this huge demand for labor in the United States, but we had no workable visa program to get low-skilled workers into the United States in a timely, unburdensome fashion. So workers came anyway, and they got jobs, and they worked, and they settled down and married and had kids and all of that, who had no right way to come in the first place. So the reason why we have 11 million undocumented people in our country today in 2018 is because we don't have a real worker visa program. So we need that now in order to prevent a future undocumented population. According to the president, our economy is doing great, which is why I don't understand why he would want to tank it with a trade war. But if our economy continues to do great and there's low unemployment, we're going to have another demand for workers in this country. And at this moment, they do not have a right way, a lawful way to walk into a U.S. consulate abroad and say, hey, I would like to apply for a work visa for 1 year, 3 years, 5 years to come to the United States and work. It doesn't exist. We don't have it under our law. So we need that. The other reason we need it is because we have a lot of foreign-born workers who come in, and because the work visas that we do have are tied to employers, we have a lot of worker exploitation. Because if an employer has all the power to say, look, if you're going to complain about your working conditions, or you're going to complain that I didn't pay you this week, I'm just going to have you deported. So that's important. The third thing that we need for immigration reform is we need greater due process protections in immigration proceedings. We just saw at the border with this cruel policy, and it was intentionally cruel to separate children from their parents for the express purpose of sending a message to asylum seekers fleeing for their lives: do not seek safety in the United States. You are not welcome here. Do not bring your children here. That was the purpose of that policy. We still have just under 500 kids in detention who have not been reunited with their parents. We have another 13,000 children in civil immigration detention as we speak. And the reason for that is because we have a broken immigration system. We are filling it with these 11 million who should be allowed to apply for legalization in the United States. And so we're not giving a fair hearing on asylum applications from people that have meritorious asylum cases. And then you couple with that an attorney general who unilaterally decides that victims fleeing domestic violence in their home countries, victims who are unable to leave their relationships or have protection from police in their home countries, are now disqualified from asylum. Just unilaterally made that decision. You know, all of this is unacceptable, but it is fixable. In June, the Problem Solvers Caucus, which includes a lot of moderate Republicans, attempted to go around Speaker Ryan and force a vote on 4 immigration bills. 2 of the bills were good. 2 of them were awful. There were enough votes likely to pass the 2 good bills and defeat the 2 bad ones. They needed 4 more signatures in order to bring these bills to a vote on the House floor and, take some steps to fix our broken immigration system. My opponent, who styles himself a moderate Republican who belongs to the Problem Solvers Caucus, refused to sign the petition to bring those bills to the floor for a vote. Unacceptable. Instead, he tends to send out inflammatory campaign materials about scary, heavily tattooed brown people. And that's why we can't get this legislation done. That's why we can't solve these problems, because we keep feeding into people's worst fears just to get reelected. And that's unacceptable at this point. These are real people's lives, and we have to take that seriously. I'm sorry, Kelly, was that way more than you wanted to know about immigration?
I think it's great. said this before, but, I want to vote for people who know more than I do about some of these things. I mean, I fancy myself as someone who would be a decent congresswoman, but, I want people who know a lot and think really deeply about issues and, and recognize the things that they don't know a lot about and need to learn more about. And, that's not how we've been electing people, but
that's right. I think you would be an excellent congresswoman because any U.S. citizen who's at least 25 years old, who cares about people, who loves this country, who has intellectual curiosity, who's interested in learning about an issue before they take a position on it, and that includes talking to people who are going to be affected by the issue, who are affected. That's what makes great congressmen and women. Those are the qualities that make great public servants. That's what we should be focusing on, not if you could raise $1 million in 6 months from the healthcare industry and defense contractors.
All right. Well, unfortunately, of course, congressional races do cost money. Not millions of dollars, but they cost some money. So how can our listeners help your campaign?
Well, I appreciate you asking. I do not accept corporate PAC money, so please do not send me a check from a corporate PAC. I'm raising my money from individuals. People can go to saradady.com, SARADADY.com, and I also am on Act Blue, and make a contribution. I've raised 95% of my funds from individuals. The other 5% has come from my local party PACs in district. I'm very proud that we're running this campaign, a really solid campaign. It's really volunteer-driven on a small budget, but we've been able to reach a lot of people.
Well, that is excellent. And of course, we have a lot of listeners in and around Chicago. And so I'd like to encourage them to drive out. The 16th District is not that far from the city. And our listeners in Madison, Wisconsin, too. It's also not too far for you.
That's right. In fact, Rockford is exactly 84 miles from downtown Chicago. I know, because that's where my court is when I go to court. We're doing canvassing every Saturday and Sunday from now through November 6th. We have phone banking Thursday nights in Rockford and DeKalb. And we also can do virtual phone banking. So you can bank from home if you have a phone and a laptop. We can get you set up. So you can contact us through saradady.com or on Facebook or Twitter. And we just need to turn out that vote on the 16th, and I think that we can do it. The enthusiasm is definitely on the Democrat side, but we have to turn the people out to vote. We can't just assume people will go.
All right. Well, Sara, thank you so much for taking the time to do a little catching up with me, and excited about your race. I'm excited about all of the Illinois districts. I think, I've said this about a lot of states, but I think the road to taking back the House runs right through Illinois.
I agree. I really do. And, I look at my friend Kevin Gaither, who's running in the 15th against long-term Republican incumbent. His district, the geographic size is almost twice the size of the 16th. He's running on a way smaller budget than I am, but he is everywhere. He's holding like 10 town halls every 2 weeks, because he's really out there talking to people. And I think we as Democrats, we get that. We have to work really hard and reach out to people to get this done. And remember, we're laying the foundation for 2020 and 2022 and 2024. So we have to take the long view on this and make a long-term investment, because we can do better.
Yes, we must. We must do better.
We will. And so thank you for having me on, Kelly. It's always my pleasure to be on talking with you.
All right. And we'll have you back on after you win.
All right. Sounds great.
Thanks for listening to Two Broads Talking Politics. Our theme song is called Are You Listening? Off of the album Elephant Shaped Trees by the band Immunuri, and we're using it with permission of the band. Our logo and other original artwork is by Matthew Weflin and was created for use by this podcast.